Hello BookTube, this is Aaron from Aaron Read a Book or Aaron Read a Book. I didn't do a Friday reads this week because I was right at the end of two books and I wanted to finish them before I did an update, so I'm doing a Saturday reads. And the two books that I was finishing I read because of the first book I read, which is a case of non-fiction recommending fiction. And that is because the non-fiction I read was Dear Reader, The Comfort and Joy of Books by Cathy Rentzenbrink. And this is a bookish memoir about Cathy's sort of childhood with books, being an avid reader, and then working in bookshops and eventually working for sort of bookish charities and stuff as well. But basically, it's a love song to books. And I heard about this book by Alice mentioned it from Alice's Giant Bookshelf, and she mentioned it's one of her favourite books about books, or her favourite, I think she said. Very nice cover. It's like sparkly. So what I like about this is Cathy, her father's a miner. So they move around a lot when she's a child, and she's a very working class background. And you don't get that many sort of bookish books from a working class perspective, I don't think. And I also like that she worked sort of minimum wage crappy jobs until she was in her 30s, which I did as well. So I relate to that. But she also has a lot of the same sort of taste as me. So in this, she's sort of revisiting her bookish life through the book she reread a lot when she was a child. So it's sort of very fitting for rereading December. Remember December? I can't remember the name of the event that's coming up. But yeah, she's basically talking about these books that she read lots and lots. And she gets me on side as well because she loves the Cazalet Chronicles by Elizabeth Jane Howard, and I'm constantly harping on about those on here. So I found another fan, and she also mentions a couple of other books that I will get onto because I read them. But yeah, I loved this, and it made me wish that I had worked in bookshops because although she's sort of behind the till doing the standard bookshop jobs, she talks about how much she loves talking to people about books and recommending books, and how great it is when they sort of come back and say they loved it. I think she would love BookTube. She needs to get on BookTube. But yeah, but she is an extrovert and I'm an introvert, so I don't think I would have had the same level of success in shops as her. And she did eventually sort of move up into higher echelons of, I think it's Waterstone she works at. She works at the Harrods one and the Oxford Street one, so the big ones. Yeah. But yeah, I don't think I'd have been successful. But obviously she's now become an author as well. And another thing she talks about is how she used to do a lot of author events and meet authors, and that took away some of the. She'd sort of put them on a pedestal, and realised that basically anyone can write a book if they want to. And another interesting thing she says is comedians are the worst ones to do book events, which is odd because you'd think they'd be cheerful. But yeah, I love this, and she mentions Moon Tiger by what's her name? I've just read it. This is terrible. Penelope Lively. She mentions Moon Tiger by Penelope Lively a lot, and I read that. But she also mentions Ellen Montgomery a lot, and Anna Green Gables, and Mitzi Reads and Write is doing a event called More Montgomery at the moment, and so I decided to read the second Anne of Green Gables book, Anne of Avonlea as well. So that was the next book I read, and it sort of fits in with Mitzi's event. So yeah, Anne of Gables, Anne of Avonlea. In Anne of Avonlea, we're rejoining Anne as she's around 16, 17. I think she's 17. And she's come back to Avonlea to help look after her sort of adopted mother, whose eyesight's failing a little bit. And she's decided, well, she's a teacher, so she embarks on her teaching career. And we also meet some new characters that we haven't previously dealt with. Mainly two twins that they look after, called Davy and Dora. And Davy is like an absolute little terror. He's like Anne in the first book, but doing things on purpose rather than being sort of clumsy. But he's also very charming, and they love him. But one weird thing in the book is, which I see from Goodreads a lot of people don't like, is Dora's very prim and proper and a good child and will never do anything wrong. Davy does terrible things all the time, then apologises, and they sort of love him for it. And they both say in the book that they love him more than Dora, which is controversial. Well, amongst Goodreads users at least. But yeah, I loved this. It wasn't quite as good as Anne's Green Gables for me, which I gave 5 stars to. I gave 4 stars to this because there are some weaker elements, and it is slightly a bit too saccharine sweet even for me at parts. But overall I loved it, and the characters are great. And I will eventually plug on with the Anne of Green Gables series. I might try the Blue Castle, I think it's called, which is one of her standalone books as well, if I get a chance. Dear Reader, by the way, that was 5 stars for me. I love Dear Reader, so highly recommend that if you like books about books. And then the next book I read was also a book, Moon Tiger, I mentioned it. And this one, the book appears in 1987. And it is a bit of a bookery book, which is not necessarily a good thing for me. It's very literary, very, very well written. And this is the story of a woman who's on her deathbed, and she's getting flashbacks of her life. She's a historian, and she's talking about writing a history of the world, but it's really a history of her own world. And she's getting these flashbacks to her childhood and her relationship with her brother, which I won't go into too much details in, but they've got a very sort of volatile relationship where she loves to argue with people, and her relationship with the father of her daughter, Jasper, who is a sort of diplomat type, and she loves arguing with him as well. And then there's also flashbacks to her time in World War II, where she lived in Egypt. And for me, this is the most interesting part of the book. And she has a love affair, or not an affair. She has a fling sort of thing with this tank commander. And it's generally, like I say, it's very well written and very lots of historical and poetic references and things. But for me, it's too. I didn't really like her as a character, the lady Claudia, who's recounting her life, because she is so argumentative and very sort of witty but biting. Like, her and her brother are very mean about everyone around them, even her own child. She sort of talks about how she doesn't really seem like she loves anyone apart from the tank commander, which may be the point of the book. But it was enjoyable. I gave it 3 stars, but it's not my type of book. But I did find the World War II Egypt stuff very interesting. It's definitely one of the better books I've read. So if you like Bookish style books, I do recommend it. The other book I bought because of Dear Reader, well, I have not started yet, and I don't think I'm going to start it yet because I want to get some more non-fiction in. Not sure what yet, but I ordered from eBay Dodie Smith's I Captured the Castle. Don't know a lot about this, but I've seen on Goodreads that a lot of people seem to love it, and Cathy from Dear Reader loved it, so maybe I will love it. If you've read this, let me know. If you've read Dear Reader as well, let me know. And if you've read Moon Tiger or the Anne of Green Gables series, let me know. Have a good one, BookTube.